Uh, I'm happy to be a part of your webinar, which discussed the new Environmental Impact Assessment Draft Notification 2020. I hope that all of you have a preliminary understanding about the Environmental Impact Assessment Notification and its importance in the environmental regime. We have several enactments uh, for the purpose of protecting the environment and water and air. It starts from 1972, the Water Act, then 80 Forest Conservation Act, 1981 Air Act, then comes the 1986 Environmental Protection Act. The legislative purpose is very evident from section 3, 4 and 5, that central government and state governments, or in other words, the state, has a constitutional duty to protect the environment on basically on three principles, that is intergenerational equity, precautionary principle, and sustainable development. This is more connected to the international laws related to environment, mainly the Stockholm Declaration, where India is a signatory. And there was a constitutional obligation for the state to have a national legal instrument for the protection of environment. So, you know the history of 1986 Act. After the Great Bhopal tragedy, there was a hue and cry as a whole in the nation for protection of environment, especially because the people of Bhopal suffered a lot by the Bhopal accident. So the Bhopal tragedy made the a positive reason for bringing the enactment for the protection of environment. The wordings of section 3 and 5 is in such a way that it restricts any person or entity in this country from polluting or degrading the environment. There is a right duty aspect as far as any law is concerned, that state has a duty towards its citizens. At the same time, citizens have a right. For example, they have Article 300A, they have a right to enjoy their property. Any restriction imposed by the government is a restriction on the enjoyment of Article 300A, right to property. But Environment Protection Act is worded in such a way to control any activity of the human beings, not only the companies or entities, commercial entities, any activity that causes environmental degradation will be regulated under the Environmental Protection Act. Based on Stockholm declarations and the India being a signatory, India was forced to have another notification under Section 3 of Environmental Protection Act, that is Environmental Impact Assessment Notification. This was in 1993. They published a draft. When we address a particular legislation and when we address the amendment, when we are discussing about whether it is a dilution, how we should respond to a draft notification, we have to first understand what is the purpose of this notification, from where it originates, what was the original intention of this legislation. This is not a legislation, this is a subordinate legislation. This was not, EIA notification was not passed by the Parliament of India, but this was passed by the executive of the state, by the nation, after obtaining their respective powers from the Environment Protection Act. So this is a officially subdelegated legislation. This subdelegated legislation has an intention. So any enactment or any amendment to the EIA notification, we have to check whether it is in tune with the intention of the notification. You take any example, any legislation, when an amendment comes, whether it serves the purpose which is intended by the original enactment, that has to be checked into. So first we will go to the intention of the notification. Then we can understand whether EIA 2020 is in tune with the intention of the 1993 draft notification and 1994 first EIA notification. Then in 2006, the earlier notification was superseded by the it was withdrawn, and the new notification has come into force. That is 2006 EIA notification, which is prevailing now. Now the intention of notification is basically three things. One, having based on the principles of precautionary principle, any activity or project that is having a potential impact on the environment should have an environmental impact assessment and a public consultation. Environmental impact assessment of the particular activity beforehand and the public consultation of the same. And they have to form a environment management plan. Then comes the regulatory part. There will be a national instrument under which the environmental impact assessment notification will work. In the central government, it is Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. In the states, it is State Environmental Impact Assessment Authority. In the central government, there is expert appraisal committees for various sectors like building construction, mining, non-coal mining, coal mining, and other river valley projects. There are sector-wise environmental expert appraisal committees. In the state, there is state expert appraisal committee, where the experts as a panel sit together, apply their mind on the environmental impact assessment reports, public consultations, if any, and they formulate conditional clearances, or they can reject the proposal as such. What is the criteria for rejection or approval? It is not clearly written in the notification. So people may ask, what criteria, what basis the environmental, the experts, the expert appraisal committees are recommending the project with conditions? They have two options. You should keep in mind, they have two options. One is to recommend the project with conditions. It cannot be conditionless. What are the conditions to be imposed is to be decided by through the process of appraisal. Then comes the rejection. So these two are the options. How to arrive at the conclusion? That is based on the documents that they are receiving. So from form 1 application, each and every information is very crucial as far as appraisal is concerned. A simple question asked by any public with respect to the project in the public hearing also is very much important in the process of appraisal. So in the 1994 notification and in the 2006 notification, they have come up with a list of activities which are having potential impact on the environment. What are the activities? You can get a list of activities in the environmental impact assessment notification. Those activities are found as activities which are having potential impact on the environment. Initially, mining more than 5 hectares was included. Honorable Supreme Court in Deepak Kumar case directed the central government to include less than 5 hectare mining also into the environmental regime. Why? Because the central government appointed a committee and they found that mining activity even less than 5 hectares is causing environmental impact. So once you found that a particular activity is causing an impact on the environment, then your duty is to include those activities into the existing environmental EIA regime. When central government was reluctant to do it, there was a direction from the Honorable Supreme Court to do it. So first we have to think whether EIA is sufficient as a subordinate legislation. Why? Because there were more than 150 amendments for the EIA notification 2008 till date, through office memorandums, through notifications, amendments. Most of the amendments are dilution in nature. They diluted the existing notification and permitted so many activities. So that was objected by many people. It was challenged before the National Green Tribunal, before the High Courts, before the Supreme Court. Courts interfered with the process and they were defeated in their agenda to dilute the environment. Now, 2020 draft notification come. This is not a new notification. This is a continuation of what is existed as on today. When we see the notification, the first thing which I notice is that there is a provision for post facto clearances. You know that environmental clearance process is prior to the starting of activity. Why? We should know it is why, because without knowing as to why the ex post facto notification is not provided in the statute, then only we can oppose it effectively, or we can take a wise decision. Any activity should be measured, its impact should be measured before starting of the project. After starting the project, after altering the area, how can we assess the impact of a particular activity? For example, mining. If I am proposed to mine a particular or construct a building in a particular area and it contains some rare or threatened species of plants or animals, the assessment has to happen prior to the starting of the activity. Once I remove the entire flora and fauna from the area and I invite some experts to assess the impact of that particular activity on the field, I cannot get it. So, ex post facto notification is unknown to the environmental regime that is declared by the observed by the Honorable Supreme Court in more than one cases. All over the world, there is only pre-environmental impact assessment, not post facto. So this notification provides a ex post facto notification, a clearance process. That is, you can start the activity, you can damage the area without any sort of assessment or environment clearance, and then you can come for clearance. So the very purpose of the notification is being defeated by the provision to provide environment clearances for violation cases. Once the violation cases are provided for regularization, if there is a regularization option, just like in our building rules or any other municipal laws, if you provide in Environment Protection Act also there is a provision for regularization, then no project proponent will go for environment clearance, because they can damage the earth maximum, they can damage the resources, and they can come for clearances. So clearances will become a process of nullity. It has no meaning at all. So that is the first thing to be noted in the notification. Then I can say many positive things about this notification, that they have come up with certain explanations to, or definitions to, each and every word used in this notification. Earlier it was not there. Definition 3. This is worded, if you see the notification, this is worded more like a act, like application of the notification, definitions, then comes the process. So if you see, this is more like a enactment. Why can't we, our parliament, make this EIA process into a separate enactment, a law? Why are we permitting the official sitting in the Ministry of Environment to dilute the environmental impact assessment notification through its office memorandums? When we are saying that a building construction more than 20,000 square meters should obtain EC, one officer sitting at the ministry issuing a notification amendment saying that this can be, the upper limit can be extended to 50,000 square meter. Then it comes 1 lakh square meter. So then when the court interferes, then they again reduce to 20,000. So every day the law changes through some office memorandums or notifications. It is because there is no finality to this EIA notification, because it is being delivered, subdelegated to the officials who are sitting in the ministry. Now there is no stringent process of legislation. They can issue a final notification even without hearing the draft notification or objections there. So that is when we file our objections or when we file our observations with respect to this EIA 2020, it should be introduced in the parliament as a law, not a subordinate legislation like this. That is the first point. When we see the definitions have come, and now it is good that the definitions have come, so that there should not be any a claritylessness with respect to each word which is used in the notification. When we come to the process of appraisal, the first thing we notice is the reduction of time for public hearing. The public consultation process is given 30 days time. Now it is reduced to 20 days. Why? Even 30 days is not sufficient for effective public hearing in remote areas. When we see India as a whole, you can see minus climate. Where am I audible?
Yes, sir.
I heard some noise. So India is having deserts like in Rajasthan and ice-capped areas like in Himalayas or the other Himalaya regions, nearby regions like Kulu, Manali, etc. So we have only one environmental impact assessment notification for the whole country, where in northeast countries, northeast states, where tribal people have to travel more than 10 hours to reach their nearby towns where the internet access and other things are there. So we are formulating a same set of criteria for whole of India. Don't consider Kochi or Mumbai or Delhi and internet connectivity of us when we compare the provisions of this notification. 30 days means we need only one day. Every day we are having access to internet. So that kind of, I'm not going into the details. I'm saying the reduction of time for public hearing is very important and it should be objected. Then when we see the intention of the notification, the power originates from Section 3 of Environment Protection Act. That power is coupled with a duty. It is not only a power, it is a power coupled with duty. Just in the Honorable Supreme Court said in Gorbanji Das case, every statutory duty is more or less vested with every statutory power is more or less vested with a statutory duty. It is not only a power to do something. That power is for the purpose of doing some duty to the nation. This power of Section 3 to regulate any industry or activity is for the protection of environment and improvement of environment. These two words came from the provisions of Constitution 48A. So protection and improvement of environment is the only activity which is permitted by the EIA notification. They cannot dilute it. The power is given only to protect the environment and improve the environment. So once we have a regulation for 20,000 square meter building, if you increase it to 50,000, what will be the impact? It is not to protect the environment. It is not to improve the environment. So this is regressive. There comes the principle of non-regression. You cannot take a regressive approach in the environmental legislation process. You read every provision, you must have already read. So those provisions which are dilution in nature from the 2006 notification is unconstitutional and is against the powers given for the sub-delegation, powers given for the enactment of EIA to the officials. Section 3 has given power only to protect or improve the environment. You cannot make any provision to dilute the existing environmental regime. Then comes the we have already covered the violation cases. If anybody want to note, there is a judgment of the Honorable Supreme Court in Common Cause versus Union of India, where it is noted that post facto environment clearance is alien to the environmental jurisprudence. That was the observation of the Honorable Supreme Court. Then comes the question of deemed licenses. In environmental impact assessment notification 2006, there is a provision for deemed environment clearance. They say that if an application is filed without public hearing on a particular time, if the environmental expert appraisal committee recommends the project and the regulatory authority is not taking any action or not rejecting the project, then that recommendation with conditions can be considered as a deemed permission for environment. That deemed provision is only if the expert appraisal committee recommends and the regulatory authority is not taking any action. But as far as mining less than 2 hectares is concerned, they have created a provision of deemed clearance for such mining activities. So this kind of provisions, just like there was mining activity when it was before 2012, only 5 hectare and more was included in the EIA regime. So people used to apply for 4.9 hectares and say that it is outside the purview of the environmental clearance. So they need not take environmental clearance because my project is only 4.9 hectare. Then they'll complete the 4.9 hectare and they will again apply for 4.9, so that piecemeal approach of projects was done to evade the provisions of the EIA notification. When they create such 0 to 2 hectare and 2 to 5 hectare and 5 to 25 hectare, when that kind of clusters are formed, there is a tendency for people, project proponents, to escape from the EIA notification by piecemeal approach, by cutting and making projects into pieces. If you are creating 20,000 square meter or above building constructions into EIA regime, I will construct 17,000 square meter building and then I will expand it further to another 4,000 or 5,000 square meters so that I can escape from the EIA regime. So these piecemeal approach should be discouraged according to the directions of the Honorable Supreme Court. But this also has come up with such provisions for cutting the projects into pieces and get environment clearances very easily. When it comes to the appraisal, then comes the general condition. General condition, there is a word. Have you noticed in the EIA notification there is a list of activity which is which invites which are the activities, that is the schedule of the notification. That schedule of the notification, according to paragraph 2 and 7, it starts from mining and it ends by elevated roads. 43 projects or activities have been listed. There is a table. If you notice page number 37 of the notification, draft notification, you can see in many areas the general conditions, whether it is applicable or not applicable. This general condition means any project which falls within 10 kilometers from the protected areas or wildlife sanctuaries or the state boundaries or eco-sensitive zones declared, then the D category projects will be appraised either in the central level or it will be appraised as A categories. Earlier it was considered as A categories. Now the appraisal will go to central government, but it will be treated as B categories. So the general condition is very much important because you know that there is a direction from the Honorable Supreme Court to consider the 10-kilometer surrounding areas of existing wildlife sanctuaries and protected areas as eco-sensitive zone unless they notify their own eco-sensitive zones. So to have an additional buffer protection for these areas, for example, we have Periyar Tiger Reserve. If I am constructing a huge building within 1 kilometer from the Periyar Tiger Reserve or a bird sanctuary, that will have an impact on the protected area. So instead of dealing those things in the state EIA, SCIA, or the state expert appraisal committee, the project have much more seriousness than that of the any other project which falls outside the 10-kilometer area. So these 10-kilometer areas are generally those projects will go to the central government for appraisal. Especially subjects experts are more and the conditions are more stringent in central government, and the appraisal processes seem to be very strict in central government. So such general conditions have been diluted in the EIA notification when we compared with the earlier 2006 notifications. Many areas, many columns, you can see the general condition is not applicable. So that is actually, they are permitting the existing norms to be diluted and to be given to the state committees. The rejection of state committees are very, very less when we compare to the expert appraisal committees in the central level, so that they can manage the state governments to get environment clearances done. This is very serious because it takes care of the state boundaries as well. So if Tamil Nadu, for instance, Tamil Nadu is doing a big project like uh, observatory, the nuclear observatory, or a big mining project very close to Kerala state boundary. And Tamil Nadu State Environment Impact Assessment Authority is only considering this project. They will vouch for Tamil Nadu only. They will not consider the objections of the state government. It need not consider. So when it comes to the central level, they can consider all these aspects and take a wiser decision. So this incorporation of general conditions, that was the intention of the general conditions. Now it is being diluted in many of the projects and activities. Then we come to one point which I missed to point out is the conflict of interest of the ministry. The conflict of interest of the ministry is very, very important because the subject of environment and any other commercial subjects cannot deal together. Electricity minister and environment minister cannot be one and the same because they are having conflicting interests. Electricity department may propose some project. It is for the environment department to regulate it. So you cannot have a proposer as well as a regulator. So there cannot be a same secretary or same official for different departments when there is a conflict of interest. Environment department is a regulator as far as other departments are concerned. Other departments like energy department, power department, irrigation department, commercial departments, all are sending their projects to environment ministry. Now the environment minister is in charge of another Prakash Javadekar. Shri Prakash Javadekar cabinet ministry is handling portfolio of Ministry of Environment and Forest, and also he is holding Ministry of Heavy Industries. So you know that one person cannot have a regulator of the same department which he holds otherwise. If heavy industries department is having an opinion about the EIA 2020 and heavy objections are coming against the dilutions of EIA notification 2020, then the minister has to take a call on it. It is ultimately the minister who takes an executive decision. That minister will definitely take a decision in favor of the heavy industries department. So the power of regulator will be diluted. There will be a conflicting interest within the department, within the ministry, within the executive authority. So without leaving the heavy industry department, the environment minister, Mr. Javadekar, cannot go forward with the EIA notification. Many of you may think that this is a political opposition. No, it's purely legal. It is purely administrative. That a person who is holding any other department cannot hold environment department when the regulatory measures are coming into force. So can be a serious objection for EIA notification 2020. Then there are violations of various judgments of the Honorable Supreme Court. For example, the wildlife clearance process that I already explained with respect to the general conditions. It is in Goa Foundation versus Union of India case, the Honorable Supreme Court has hold that around protected areas and wildlife sanctuaries, 10 kilometers should be separately treated. The 10-kilometer general conditions come from the Supreme Court judgment. So that judgment and its meaning is diluted in this 2020 notification. Deeming provision, I think all of you are clear. Anybody have? I cannot see any doubts in the chat box. Anybody can raise your hands and ask any questions when I'm Akhilesh.
Yep, we have not yet received questions on the chat
Good,
box.
good.
Yeah, actually
Good.
one person has raised hand. If she could ask the question.
Mr. I can see Mr. P.Z. Thomas from Delhi. He is one of the leading environmental consultants registered by the NABET. So he's an environmental expert. He is fighting with us in several cases against the dilution process. Any questions, even technical? Thomas sir, yes, students are here from, I think, from environmental department as well. So if they have any technical questions also, we can address. If there is no question, we can move on. I think one question somebody has raised their hand. Yes.
Yeah, so you said that a person who is working in two sectors cannot handle the environment. I got confused. Could you explain that one?
I have to explain it.
Yeah, I think the question is the person cannot work in two different departments. Could you please explain?
Okay. Any decision of Environment Ministry has to be ultimately approved by the Minister of Environment and Forest and Climate Change. It is now Mr. Javadekar who is having that portfolio. So when a project comes from any other department, an independent decision making is needed for Environment Department, also for the Forest Department. When a department is asking for some more forest land to be diverted, that diversion, whether to accept that diversion or not, it is for the Ministry of Forest to decide. Ultimately, the minister should decide. Minister can change the policy of the department at any time. This is more like a policy document, not a mere executive order. So when a policy is decided, it should be independent of any other outside pressures or even inside pressures. When assume that our electricity minister is holding the portfolio of Ministry of Environment and Forest. Morning, he is acting as a Minister of Power. He proposes more dam projects to Environment Ministry. He proposes more big energy projects like thermal power projects or nuclear power projects to the Ministry of Environment for clearance. In the afternoon, he is sitting as Environment Minister and signs those documents. Can he say a no, even if the science or the experts say no? He cannot. He cannot act independently without pressures from the other department. Some person may be withstanding the pressure, but that doesn't mean that he can hold both ministries together, which is having just opposite interests. Yeah. So Ministry of Heavy Industries is having, Ministry of Heavy Industries means what? So they have their own interest. Their ministry have their own interest. They have to keep their interests intact. There should be a clash of interest between the ministries. Then only the real regulator can work according to the statute and their statutory goals. Is that clear?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you for giving me an opportunity.
Yes, Mr.
That is,
Thomas.
that is, in continuation to what Advocate Harit said about that provision of Section 3 of the EP Act. You all must read, there is a judgment recently of Dr. Chandrachud, Justice Chandrachud from Supreme Court, dated 1/4/2020. Alembic Pharmaceutical versus Rohit Prajapati. There is one judgment. There he clearly, outrightly reject the provision of this ex post facto clearance. So there, what he does was, see, the Section 3 power is a very, to be read very carefully. The central government can take measures. That is the word he used. The central government, by issuing a subordinate legislation, that is a notification, or an office memorandum, or a rule, or anything, it is a measure by the central government or by the state. So that measure that Dr. Chandrachud is telling, that measure should be for the protection and improvement of environment only. It cannot be otherwise. This is his clear, definition of this Section 3. Measure. That is 1/4/2020. Number one. Number two, in continuation of the Section 3, you all should also read subsection 2, subsection 3 to 5 of the Section 3. See, the central government, again, whether it is through the state agency or they themselves, they can prohibit or restrict the activity with the safeguards. That means any project or activity or process, they can outrightly reject, that is prohibit. And when they come to restriction with safeguards, that safeguard will ensure a sustainable development. That is the intent of that Section 3, subsection 2, subsection 5. So while granting the environmental clearance, you all might have seen several conditions in an environmental clearance letter or an order by the central government or by the state level. So those conditions are the safeguards which are specified in this Section 3 to 5 of EP Act, while permitting you for this activity for a particular area, that project proponent needs to follow or comply with these conditions or these safeguards to make this project as a sustainable project. That is the sustainability theory comes. Now my third submission is, like, as already Advocate Harish has said, see this prior word, prior environmental clearance, prior permission, prior approval. This prior comes from your precautionary principle. That is precautionary principle. The baby is the word prior. If you carry out an activity, in our language we call it is anticipated impacts. We have to anticipate the impacts before the project is coming in. Suppose if there is a mining project, the environmental consultant or the regulator should anticipate, is there any chance of noise pollution? Is there any chance of air pollution? Is there any chance of vibration? Is there any chance of loss of the habitat? Is there any chance of change of topography? Is there any change of drainage pattern? So these things prior to, that is the expertise involved. The expertise of an environmental consultant or the regulator comes there. For a project suppose in a city, in a town, if a building construction project comes, if a building construction project, if the project site next to it is a hospital, then you cannot have a shopping complex or a cineplex near that hospital. So, but if it is in some other area, that the same project with the same magnitude may be permitted. So, environmental clearance is per se for a particular site. If the site varies from A site to B site, the impacts vary. So if the project site in a particular village, even the site specific is the most crucial thing. So if the prior environmental clearance word, if it is gone, the precautionary principle is getting defeated. So the ex post facto clearance system per se is defeating your precautionary principle. That is one of the cornerstones of environmental jurisprudence. This is a thing to be kept in mind. That is the most important. Now with
judgment of Mr. Thomas, the judgment of Chandrachud is, what is the cost title of it? Alembic
Pharmaceuticals. That is a pharma company in the Ankleshwar Industrial Estate.
Okay. Alembic Pharmaceuticals.
Alembic Pharmaceutical versus Rohit Prajapati.
Okay.
And Union of India.
Okay.
This is the kind of scheme. So I don't want to elaborate now. From 2006 to 2020, whatever OMs, as Sir has already said, there are 46 amendments, that is by subordinate legislation, notifications. There are 300 OMs, 300. So in effect, all these things coming to about 350. So this 350, they have consolidated into one document, that is your EIA 2020 in brief. That is all dilutions in piecemeal, comprehensively they issued, and that is this EIA 2020. Now, if you see from 94 to 2020 journey, every stage it went away from the environment towards the industry. Originally it was for industry, the environment centric. Now it is fully industry centric. Environment is lost in the way. This is the unfortunate part. Now this document that all my, the youngsters, my request is, because you are the people to take it forward. Because we people have lived, we are in the fag end of our retirement and all. So you people have to canvas to at least 100 people each student. Though there may be only 40 here. So 40 into 100. I say 4,000 objections you send to ministry. Let your voice be heard. Some or the other ministry should realize, yes, it is not an easy task to, this is every word, every sentence they have made diluted to the maximum. The EIA thing will become a kind of a paper tiger now onwards. I can tell you very clearly. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. I'll sum up with the 2 or 3 main points so that we'll have a discussion. I think many eminent personalities are sitting inside this room. I don't want to mention their name. Very happy. They are 2020. You can file your objections up to June 30th. Many persons are asking me, is the time over? The time is not over. June 30th is the last day for objections. Don't wait for the last day. You file before 20th or 25th. There is an email address to which the objections have to be sent. You also make a copy of those objections to the Prime Minister of India, so that after filing those objections, ministry may come before the court and say that we have not received any objections. We have, Mr. Thomas and me, have seen cases where the objections were raised by people before the ministry. It is in the file, but the ministry coming before the court and say that they have not received any objections. So we have seen fraud doing by the ministry, that they have not received any comments. 1,500 objections were sent. We have the copy of the objection sent. We have the copy of the receipts, postal receipts, in which ministry has received those objections. But the ministry says only 300 or 400 objections have received. Through email, if people can send through postal department, you can send through postal as well before June 30th. I request all of you, that your first and foremost objection should be remove this EIA notification as a subdelegation, as a notification, and go to the parliament and enact a law for protection of environment under for the EIA process. Two, all these points I have raised don't allow the ex post facto clearances, don't go against the principles laid down by the law laid down by the Supreme Court. When Supreme Court says something under Article 141 and 142 of the Constitution, Supreme Court has the power to declare the law of the land. Just like Parliament is having the power, Supreme Court is also having a power. Many people don't know about it. If you see how a policeman is arresting a person, just like that, there are so many law prevailing in this country which is laid down by the Honorable Supreme Court. So just like that, when Supreme Court says something, that law cannot be superseded through officials through their office memorandums. Now, when it comes to the regulatory part, there is a judgment of the Honorable Supreme Court in 2014, January 6th, in Umium Mining Private Limited, Lafarge case, which is commonly known as Lafarge case. In the Lafarge case, the Honorable Supreme Court said that there should be a national regulator for the protection of environment. Now it is being done by the Ministry of Environment. Ministry is giving clearances. Ministry is giving clearances, and at the same time, Ministry is monitoring it. Can one person, can one entity issue clearances and monitor the same? Can they regulate the activities which are permitted? No, they cannot. They are thoroughly failing in that activity. That is very easily understandable from 1994 to 2020. Environment Ministry and the regulatory authorities like State Environment Impact Assessment Authority are thorough failure as far as regulation is concerned. They are not regulating the process. Whether district collectors are regulating? No. Under Environment Protection Act and EIA notification, if you violate any provision of law, if you violate EIA notification, if you violate any condition of environment clearance, the district collector or the state or the pollution control board has to take cognizance of the offense and book a case. Now, how many cases have been registered in Kerala for violation of environmental clearance? It is less than 10. How many persons have gone to jail? I don't see any person going to jail for violation of environment clearances. So how the law works? The law doesn't work at all. Law works in law. We can see the law. We can see the EIA through papers. There is nothing happens in the field. So there should be a regulator was the direction in 2014. Whether EIA 2020 draft notification considered it? No. So that is also a violation. They should bring a new draft by bringing this regulatory body, a national regulator for taking care of the violations and taking stringent action under the provisions of law should be brought into this regime. That is also that should also be reflected in your objections. Then if you see dilutions, I can point out many. Broadly speaking, they have increased the upper cap of many projects. If projects from 20,000 square meter of building constructions were involved, when we increase it to 50,000, you are exempting 20 to 50,000 square meter buildings from the EIA regime. What is its impact? Those who have taken the environmental clearances prior to have become, say they are fools to take it. Just like our Merid case, the Honorable Supreme Court has directed to demolish it. Why? They have not taken prior clearance. When you are exempting those provisions, those activities from the purview of EIA, what is the purpose of such demolitions? So we should think in such a way that any kind of increase in the upper limit of these activities, I can say one or two examples, like when metallurgic projects are concerned, they have increased the project activity. So yesterday, if I was having 1 lakh metric ton iron ore processing unit, I was forced to take environmental clearance. There will be a environmental impact assessment. There will be a monitoring process. There will be conditions to reduce the pollution or mitigate the impacts of this particular activity. Now, when you are increasing it to 2 lakh, up to 2 lakh, the entire projects can start, they can run, and they can destroy the environment. Now, what is the whole purpose of EIA? Mr. Thomas said,
the lower threshold was 60,000 metric ton annum. Now it is increased to 50 lakh per annum.
60,000 has become 50 lakh.
50 lakh.
Yes.
Not 1 2 lakh.
That means more than 100 projects can come. Just like if you are 60,000, about 90 projects can come without EC. Now nobody will go for EC because it is as good as the metallurgic projects are exempted.
Exempted out.
Yes. If you increase the 20,000 metric ton into 3 lakh metric ton, square meter into 3 lakh square meter or 5 lakh square meter, there is no such building in Kerala. Nobody want to apply for environment clearance. So instead of taking the whole list of activity from the purview, because if they take out the list itself, Supreme Court will interfere. So they are keeping the industry for namesake, and they are increasing the lower threshold from 60,000 to 50 lakh, so that nobody want to file any environmental application. There are so many other industries also which increases the lower threshold. And when our friend Meera asked in the ministry's webinar, they had no answer why they have done this. So that point, please.
The compliance to the conditions of EC, that is there in the EIA draft preamble, they said one of the reason for this document is there is a Sandeep Mittal versus MOEF case they are quoting in the preamble. Now this Sandeep Mittal case is in the NGT from 2018, only on to the non-compliance of conditions of EC. Their MOEF filed an affidavit saying the compliance report, 6-monthly compliance report submission by category A project is about 60 to 70% out of the total projects who got the EC. Category B projects, it is only 8%. 92 even not bothered. So what is the purpose of issuing this environmental clearance? 6-monthly compliance report is required mandatorily, and 92% don't file. And very beautifully, cleverly, in clause 3 bracketed 60, the definition of the term violation. Definition of the term violation is only to include post facto clearance. The violation, non-compliance of conditions of EC
is not considered a violation.
Not a violation. Who bloody hell will follow this? It is not a violation. Why should somebody follow? If you cross the signal, traffic signal, if it is not a violation, then what is the fun in keeping the traffic signal? This is the kind of thing. So the national regulator part add only 2 sentences. In 2011, I just add Advocate Harish. 2011 is the Lafarge Umiam, that mining project came. The issue of the national regulator first came in 2011. Parallelly, there is a high power committee of the ministry in 2011. They also suggested to have a national level environment impact assessment authority, like state environment impact assessment authority. their jobs primarily around three things that all, the law students should understand, and you will be surprised why this environment impact assessment tool is a failure after 30 or 29 years or 30 years. One of the main reasons for its failure is, one is the non-compliance, which I told you. Otherwise, second thing is, this so-called expert appraisal committee members, SCIA members, SCAC members, the state level, though their qualification and experience is provided in the notification, but it is purely pick and choose. If LDF government comes, their own chelas will be in the SCAC. UDF government comes, their own chela will be. It is not fair for the environment. Environment don't know LDF or UDF. They want best talent. Environment want the best talent. So,
scientific.
So there is no procedure for selection, no interview, no newspaper advertisement where this selection is made, which name is going to MOF for selection. Nobody, no transparency at all. So whoever is in the Oshana Partner, whoever is there, they will be members of the SCAC, SCIA. Can we have a fair assessment of the environment? They will never talk against the government. They will never talk against the wishes of the mighty. So the environment will be the casualty. And this is happening. In the EAC, SCIA, SCAC, you remove politics. So one of the objectives of the national regulator is to appoint the members of EAC. It will be like your constitutional authority of Election Commission of India, Controller and Auditor General of India, a kind of a statutory body, independent of executive and the ministry and the politics. So one of the duties is to monitor the compliance, state level and central level. Second is to appointment of these committee independent. And third is to Expert Appraisal Committee Delhi, as Advocate Harry said, it is all sector specific, all good. But thereafter, it goes to the fourth class student minister who does not know the spelling of environment. He is the person who signs the file. So what is the fund in this Expert Appraisal Committee in the central level? Thereafter, it goes to Prakash Javadekar or to A. Raja or XYZ, who have no idea about the environment. So that is also to be stopped. The sector-specific EAC recommendation should go to the National Environment Impact Assessment Authority. Subsequent to 2011, 2014 in T.N. Godavarman, there was a specific direction from the Supreme Court to the Ministry that why can't you create under Section 3.3 of EP Act, a national level authority. Till 2018, that case was live. Till the time Justice Madan Lokur was there in the seat. Till 2018 November, that case was alive. He was after it to create it, to constitute it. So ministry was making this adjournment, that you all people know how they take. 2018, December 31st, he retired. The file also went to the deep freezer. This is the status of the national regulator. So this is, if at all, if you want a future, the generation to see this, we should have an independent. So people may ask, okay, again, the PM will keep his own man. At least you create a body. Then we will see how we can strengthen it. First, you create a national authority. Before T.N. Session was the Chief Election Commissioner of India, most of may not have been born. Nobody was knowing what is the Election Commission post is. But when he became the Chief Election Commissioner of India, people started knowing, yes, there is a post like this. So similarly, an independent authority to be created. And as a matter of fact, just to, as a tribute to that great man, T.N. Sheshan, when he was the Environment Secretary, this so-called Environmental Protection Act, such a beautiful document, it is his creation. Credit goes to him, T.N. Sheshan. No minister has prepared it. It is T.N. Sheshan's pen, not jotted this Environment Act. It is his team. So these are the things. So we must have an authority. We must have an independent authority for the appointment of this SC, SCA. Nothing to do with the politics. Nothing to do with executive. No pick and choose. Let be a transparent process. Qualification and experience. You come for interview or screening, whatever. Thank you.
I am seeing a hand raised by Nokia 7.1. I think Dr. Thara. I'll quickly come to questions, just answering 2 questions that I've received in the chat. One, what will happen to this 2020 EIA notification, whether it will come into existence without much opposition in the parliament? Please understand that this will not go to parliament. Parliament has already given powers to officials of the Environment Ministry to do whatever they want. So they are doing whatever they want. This will not go to the parliament at all. Not even a single parliament member can raise any questions with respect to the EIA 2020. Any MP, any minister will have the same right as me and Akhilesh have to oppose this through a letter. They don't have a separate power because it will not come to the parliament. This is a subordinate legislation. That is the real problem with the subordinate legislations. We should have a public consultation. We should have a overall discussion about the EIA provisions in the parliament. So this should be abandoned as such. We don't want any 2020 EIA at all. We want a separate an act, a bill in the parliament. Our first objection should be bring a bill for EIA. Then another question is, as a country, we need economic development, which is centered much around industrialization. So how do you propose to develop without causing much havoc to the environment for a country like India? See, for development, without any hurdles, without causing much damage to environment, we are having EIA. What is EIA? EIA means? EIA means by imposing conditions, we can reduce the impact of, we can mitigate the impact of a particular activity. If I am starting an activity which is having noise, there will be a condition stating that such and such measures should be taken for reducing the noise to the normal level. So if I am running a crusher unit or a quarry unit or any other industrial unit, I have to have noise reduction mechanisms around my unit, so that outside 1 meter outside my industrial unit, the sound will be 55 decibel, the maximum limit of noise in the atmosphere. Without having an environmental impact assessment, without having a condition in the EC to reduce the noise, I don't want to reduce the noise. We are having a polluted environment because we don't have the EIA in process, in practice. It is only in papers. If we have a stringent EIA measure, we are not saying no to industries. We are not saying no to development. We are saying let the development come, but the ecology should not pay for it. It is not the polluter pays. Polluter pays doesn't mean you pollute and you pay. It means you should not pollute. If you pollute, you have to pay.
I think Thomas sir also has to add something.
See, you must read again this 1/4/2020 Alembic, and there is a judgment of again Justice Chandrachud of 30th March 2019 on Mopa Airport, that is Hanuman Lakshman Taroskar. That judgment also is Justice Chandrachud. He has clearly, given the line. He said there is no trade-off between environment and development. First of all, you all must this is a kind of virus coming into our mind, saying that by putting this environment into the line, all development of the country and the world will come to an end. I will tell you one example which you can easily understand. Industrialists have got a kind of inhibition against public hearing, public consultation. I conducted public consultation at several places. I said every project, it is the best way to know the pulse of the people before you invest anything. Your district collector, you are not in the forefront. Your district collector is the person who conducts the public hearing. Pollution Control Board is the facilitator for conducting the public hearing. You are only a spectator. If the surrounding people are making thousands of noise, why the bloody hell you go there and invest? You know the pulse, you go out of and you play somewhere else. If you exempt that activity from public consultation, that is one of the process in the EIA regime. You set up. From day one onward, there is problem. Your constructive energy, time, everything, you are every day, you are dealing with your people there because your vehicles are blocked. There is belting of stones. There is barricading. There is hartal. There is band. There is dharna. So many things. And you will go with the police. Then there will be fight. Then there will be shooting. So why to go, this public consultation, you will know whether it is going to be accepted or whether it is going to be rejected by the people. So you don't proceed further. So this is the best tool, number one. Number two, see, in this country, I'll tell you, any industry, whether it is a micro, small, medium or large, any type of industry or any type of building construction, it is not the only approval you need. You need about 24 more approvals. Building plan, fire approval, pollution control board approval, panchayat approval. There are so many. So this environment approval is the whole problem. You don't have any problem with the municipal or panchayat people for building permission, fire approval, pollution control board approval, highway authority approval. Only eyesore is environment. That mindset itself is to be changed. There are about 25, 26 approvals for setting up. This is one of the approval. So if you take it that way, this also will be taken care. So these are the things to be taken care, in this part of, generally this comes along. Why this environmental approval? Why this environmental approval? It is a hindrance. It blocks the development. So this is the answer I want to submit very politely. Thank you.
Okay. So the points, don't miss the points that one, there is no proper criteria laid down by the notification for separate criteria for SEAC members, that is expert members in the state level and expert members in the central level. At one stage, the notification says some projects should be at the state level, some projects should be at the central level. So there should be some criteria difference between the experts also. For example, if one person is having PhD and 10-year experience, he should be dealing with state projects. One person is having more 20-year practice in EIA, he should deal with central projects. If such kind of a rational nexus is there, rational logic is there behind the criteria, we can understand that why it should be go to central level. Now they say that the same person having 10-year experience can sit in the state expert appraisal committee or central appraisal committee. So what is the purpose of going one project from state to central? So there should be separate criteria for members who are being selected for SEAC or EAC. The second point, as Mr. Thomas said, there is no proper scientific, fair, transparent process to select. So the selection process should be transparent. It should be through a process of appointing. That should be done by the regulatory authority. Okay.
So I just wanted
Questions,
to,
please.
yeah, I just want to bring up one question that we received in the chat, and I think it's pretty important to understand that, like, in case we have the same minister for both environmental protection and heavy industries with the right data and combinations, won't he be able to make a rational decision, build such industries with minor impacts to nature? But that brings up a lot of points that you have said earlier, but I would like to add something else to it. Do you think any political agendas are at play, or is it, as what you said, is legislative and purely administrative process?
See, there are some administrative principles of law. It is not based on some act or rule or anything. Before passing any order against any person, he must be heard. That is called principles of natural justice. This principle of natural justice is not written in any of the administrative laws, but that is the basics of every administrative law. There are so many basics, just like precautionary principle. There are principles of law. That principles of law states. So any legislation or any act cannot go against the principles of law. This is an administrative principle that one person should not hold two posts which are having conflict of interest. This is a principle of law. Why? I may be able to take an independent opinion. But as you know, as you heard, the justice is not to be done, but people should feel that justice is done. That feeling is very, very important. Of course, there is enough space for corruption, enough space for one department mingling or taking imposing restrictions on the minister to deal with the other department. There are so many undercurrents like that. I can point out n number of cases, examples. But I'm saying, as far as administrative laws are concerned, one should not hold conflicting of interest matters at the same time. That is why we are having separate entities for dealing with separate things. So even if the minister is very, say, unbiased, one cannot take, that is one person's limitation. One cannot take one department, their inputs will have an impact on the inputs of other departments. So that is why it is not the political thing. And second thing, as far as BJP government is concerned, as far as earlier government was concerned, they are having their own agendas to dilute the nature of environmental regulations. Whether the clearance process in Chennai is authorized by the central or state government, there is no clearance process in Chennai. Chennai, there is a bench for National Green Tribunal. National Green Tribunal is a national instrument for taking appeals against the environment clearances granted. Many people are having an opinion that National Green Tribunal is stopping the development of India. I'll quote one example very simply within 1 minute. In 2013, there were altogether 300 to 400 appeals against environment clearances granted all over India. More than 35,000 environment clearances were granted by state environmental impact assessment authorities and central government. So out of this 35,000 environment clearances per year, there is only 300 or 350 appeals filed before the NGT. Only 1% of the total ECs have been challenged at all. Why? Because appeals have to be filed within 30 days of the grant of EC or uploading of EC. Are you people looking into the website of Environment Ministry every day to see whether any mining projects or any building projects or any thermal power projects have been cleared in your village? Nobody is seeing it. We came to know, we are coming to know about this only when it is started in the field. So people are not having enough opportunity to go to National Green Tribunal. Out of the 300 and 350 appeals filed per year, only 2 clearances are set aside. One is Aramula. One was Aramula in 2013. The other one was some other projects from Andhra. And 7 or 8 projects were remanded back to the ministry to take a wiser decision. You think once more and pass orders. That was the order passed. So out of the 300 or 350 projects challenged all over India, only less than 10 projects have been stopped. What does it mean? 30,000 people students are writing an exam. 300 papers are reviewed, out of which only 3 or 4 students are failed. Now you are saying that this exam is bad because so many persons are going without pass. If 100% environment clearances are permitted, what is the purpose of appeals? So I'm saying this in National Green Tribunal or High Courts of India is not putting any stoppage or any hurdle for the development. But these environment clearances themselves are creating hurdles in the development. Why? All the projects in Delhi are having environment clearances. Are they spending out? Are they putting the pollution levels strictly in tune with the environmental regulations? No. That is why we are having a polluted Delhi. That is why we are having a polluted Chennai. That is why we are having a polluted Kochi and polluted Mumbai. Why our rivers are black in color? Because the environmental norms are not being complied with. Because the environment clearance process is not fulfilling its goals. So, environmental impact assessment, if it complies the standards, if it works well, our rivers will be clean like the rivers are now. Our air will be clean. Our development will go forward because the quality of air, quality of water, quality of earth will be intact. Any one of you, will you invest a single rupee in a state, in a city where it is polluted? No, you will not get good brains to work there. You will not get good officials to work there. You will not have good output. The quality of air is having impact on the output of any work. Also, your views on Athirapalli project. I think Athirapalli project we will deal later. But one thing is sure, Athirapalli project has got two times clearances. But when a group of experts like Dr. Madhav Gadgil have reviewed the project, they said the basic criteria is not satisfied. The environmental impact assessment was a namesake. It was an eyewash. So, ministry themselves cancelled the EC. What does it mean? The environment clearance process was not proper. Now they don't have an EC. Yes. Akhilesh.
Thomas sir has raised hand. I think he also wants to add.
The question of development versus the environment part, one thing more I want to add again. Justice Chandrachud judgment of last year 2019, Bangalore Development Authority versus Sudhakar Hegde. See, the litigate, whether it is through Advocate Harish or through some public spirited, litigants, it is not simply they are taking a lot of trouble to gather information and to reach at the place of an advocate and to file a case despite of several threatening calls and so many things. I will tell you one example. In this particular case, Bangalore Development Authority case, there was a kind of a ring road they were planning. So the case was from 2015 or so. The environmental clearance this Bangalore Development Authority obtained, there in Form 1, there is a specific question. How many trees will be cut? Is there anything wrong in putting that question? Naturally, for environmental impact assessment, at least trees to be cut is to be known. Forget about shrubs, herbs or anything. At least trees to be cut. The consultant and the project proponent wrote 500 to 600 trees. This is in the application. It is all in the website. Everybody can see. Now, this Sudhakar Hegde went to High Court. And High Court appointed the forest official to count what is the number of trees. 16,500. Is there any match between 500 and 16,500? Who is the cause for this litigation? Is it Sudhagar Hegde or the consultant or the project proponent? Most of the cases, I think Advocate Harish will acknowledge me or agree with me. It is, it is totally fudged data which creates problem. They don't write proper, thinking that escape ho jayega. Escape, every time you won't get escape. 516,500, no link. And if this much tree is cut and not noticed, that what is this environment impact assessment is? Up to the Supreme Court, and Supreme Court rejected that environment clearance. So these are the, very glaring things. There are n number of cases like this. Very casual, cavalier approach in filling up information, thinking that, okay, CAC won't find out, SCIA won't find out, ministry won't find out. Yeah, thank you.
So that is very important. Form and application should be accountable. Whether project proponent or whether consultant is filing form 1 application, that should contain a proper information. If any project proponent files a wrong information, which is later found defective, the environment clearance shall be rejected or shall be cancelled. That there was a provision in the EIA notification earlier also. But there should be a provision to blacklist the project proponent and the directors of the company. There is no such provision. And the last point which I want to add, time is very less, so I want to add the last point before going to any questions. From 2006 to 2020, we have experienced EIA notification, its implementation, its failure, its success in many cases. Aranmula clearance was granted without looking into the wetland aspects. National Green Tribunal struck down the same. That means the environmental clearance process was not good. So whether ministry has incorporated such their experience of EIA for the past 14 years into EIA 2020? No. Non-incorporation of the earlier experiences is evident from 2020 draft.
They have experience, they learned the lesson. That is why some project they said we won't send it for appraisal. So if the project is going for appraisal only the problem.
So their experience was to exclude all these things, than include measures to protect the environment. Anyway, so if the admin can collect the emails of all the persons who have attended today, we will send a copy of our objections. You can add your points. You can add your specific points. As far as environmental science students are concerned, they have a good future in this country. They have a good career in this country only if environmental protection measures are there. If government is not worried about environment or environmental protection, the first people who are going to suffer is the environmental science people, because there is no science at all. If decision-making process is not based on science, then there is no meaning in science to study. So it is for the environment science people, botany, zoology people to have a strong opposition against all these kinds of nonsense subordinate legislations. Thank you.
So,
from 1994, Advocate Harish, 1994 till 2020, last 26 years.
Yeah.
Every environmental clearance, may it be from central or from the state, it prescribes environmental cell will be constituted by the project proponent.
Yes.
In this latest one also, and in the last 26 years, ministry has not defined what is this environmental cell is. What are the constituents? What is the strength? What are the qualification and experience? Leaving it. Is it the genuine approach to deal with the environment? So these are the real definitions required here. Environmental cell. What is environmental cell?
Yes.
It is not defined. Just to bring it to your notice only.
Yes.
Yep. Actually, two people have been waiting to ask questions. One person has
Please, very. Please. Yes.
your
It's
voice
not
is
clear. It's not clear.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Some problem with the noise. Sorry.
not audible.
Akhilesh, can you hear?
No, not
Please
audible. Could
translate.
you please
There is
check your
some microphone. There is some connectivity issue with the microphone. And now it is okay, I think.
Now she has muted her mic.
Oh,
No,
can you
not
type in the chat box?
Yeah, I think she'll be typing in the chat box. There has been one more person who is waiting to ask.
Please.
Akshay. Yeah.
So,
Yeah, Akshay.
so you have told the case of Chennai that about the National Green Tribunal and all. Sir, I'm not that much into this environmental laws and all stuff, but
Yeah.
I have just found out as of now I'm studying in Chennai, seeing the situation there. Like, is the state government, like the state government having a, what do you say, like a relationship or kind of stuff with this National Green Tribunal? Because in the case of Chennai, actually the environmental, if you say the infrastructure is more than the other aspects on the environment. And also one more question, uh, like I don't know whether I'm sure or not. Like if you build a building or this thing, you should do some environmental work also with that. Like you should build trees or build like that some stuff. So are there any body or organization who checks or after review check these situations?
Okay, thank you. Two good questions. One is about the National Green Tribunal and its function. Whether the state of Chennai is having any nexus with the next NGT. Now, most of the judges who are appointed in the National Green Tribunal are retired hands from high courts, various high courts. You may think that judges are very impartial and only impartial judges are being appointed in the National Green Tribunal. It is not. Only the central government is through pick and choose method. They are choosing some persons of their choice to be the judges of Green Tribunal. Many eminent persons have applied, they have lost their chances because they are very stringent people, they are very strict people, they are very bold people to take any action. They were not selected. So the selection criteria itself is bad. Central government will adopt only their slaves into the NGT. So such kind of judges are very fearful. They are very fearful about the central government decision. And by bringing a rule amendment NGT, the judges also have now become the direct. They are directly depending the ministry for their say their office premises, their infrastructure development, etc. So that is been interdicted by the Honorable Supreme Court. But still, I am saying judges are not 100% fair or fearless as we think. They are fearful for many things. I am sure, as a practitioner in Chennai, I am sure, not blaming any judges, they are not fearlessly acting their thing. They are fearful about many aspects, whether state will file a Supreme Court appeal or anything. That is one thing. Second thing, in all environment clearances, there is a condition to mitigate the environment as per EMP. That mitigation plan includes planting of trees, environmental restoration works. If you are running a quarry, that quarry area should be converted into a beautiful garden or a beautiful planting of trees areas or a plantation after your mining activity. Did you see anywhere in Kerala any single quarry, or in Chennai or in anywhere in India, that it is being beautifully converted into a garden or a plantation? It should be done by the project proponent. There are so many such conditions prescribed in the environmental clearance. In Kerala, they have included some conditions saying that by incorporating or by working together with the local level panchayat, the biodiversity management committees, they have to local varieties of trees, shrubs, herbs, or Ayurvedic medicinal plants to cultivate there at the cost of the project proponent. It is called just like CSR, corporate social responsibility, they have environmental responsibility. So that environmental responsibility is not being taken care of. Who has to monitor this? State Environment Impact Assessment Authority has to monitor. District collectors have to monitor. Pollution Control Board has to monitor. If condition is violated, they have to impose cost. They have to book a case. If SIA is taking note of this or ministry is taking note of this, ministry has to cancel the EC. Stop the activity. That is not being done. There is no NGO, in my opinion, who is working on this. I didn't get, I have got one question in chat from Surya Gayatri. Are there any sections in the Evidence Act which can be used as a method for proving the environmental destructions? Even if we have many environmental protection rules and act, we are poor in implementing it. So will EIA be a success in conserving the environment? So there are three minor questions which are major also, it looks. One is that Evidence Act is not needed. New Evidence Act or sections are not needed for proving environmental destruction. I'll tell you why. Several courts are directing the pollution control boards to measure the quality of air. You might have seen in newspapers that in Kochi, the quality of air has come down. In Delhi, the quality of air has come down. In Bombay, it has come down. The water quality of River Periyar has come down. River Ganga has come down. Now, ministry has accepted that the quality of River Ganga is polluted. Therefore, it has to be increased. It has to be improved. So, Ganga project is declared by the Honorable Prime Minister. What does it mean? It means it is polluted. Who is polluting this? According to the ministry's documents, nobody is polluting this. It comes from God Almighty that pollution comes to rivers, pollution comes to air. In papers, nobody is polluting. If somebody is polluting, they must be in jail, no? Their clearances should be cancelled, no? So ministry is not cancelling or putting people into jail or even booking a case. So Evidence Act is there. Evidence Act says presumption is that every clearances are going proper. So if we can point out some mistakes that this is not going proper, I will tell you for your information, there is a valuable information that each one of you can become a person who can act against the polluter. Environment protection rule says any person can be a prosecutor of environmental cases. If Surya Gayatri feels that a particular industry is polluting, you download a particular form 4 under the Environment Protection Act. You download it from the ministry's website, form 4. You fill it up, you send it to the person who is polluting. You wait for some period, say 2 months. After 60 days, you can go to the CJM, Chief Judicial Magistrate Court, with a petition, written petition, proving the pollution level caused by this particular person or company. It may be evidence may be a photograph. It can be a oral evidence of a person nearby. It can be a documentary evidence of any testing of water or air. Whatever it is, you can adduce all these evidences along with your petition. You file it before the Chief Judicial Magistrate. Many of our Chief Judicial Magistrate are not knowing these provisions. Our Trivandrum Chief Judicial Magistrate is totally ignorant of this provision. I was arguing a matter before him. He don't know such an act is there. So we have to teach them first. And they can book a case against these persons. If ministry is not doing, we can do it. Even if we have many environmental protection rules and act, what is the poor implementation? Poor implementation is because of the poor mechanism. The law, the instrument of law is not proper. This instrument is not proper. This instrument should be proper, accountable, so that the instrument will work. It is the problem of the instrument. and the people who are handling it. So EIA will success in conserving environment definitely if the ministry is incorporating all the objections that we raised here. Definitely we will have a better environment.
Okay, so we are about to wind up, but I would like to just put up 2 points. One is a question to both Harish sir and Thomas sir about all the people who have been in the webinar and who I have seen in the past couple of weeks or months have been youth resisting about the EIA notification. There has been a large upsurge of people, especially from the youth community, coming together and acting upon it. The, the question is, what are the suggestions both of you can give to youth, especially on how we can bring about a systemic change throughout the national structure? Because a lot of people in this in the webinar are not just limited to Kerala, but we all are coming together to act upon this. And I have seen, like, I have been part of a lot of groups as well who are regularly trying to fight for this, coming up with email storms, Twitter storms, and even today before this webinar, there was a discussion about Adrapalli waterfalls, what we can do, and there was this. People are coming with solutions like, can we phone call them, like 500 people call every like people in that administration, yeah, and phone storm, and what all things that they are very active. They want to know what all things we can do, and we want to bring about a systemic change, and it's we can see a really passionate group of people coming together. That is first thing I would like to ask both the speakers. And then another thing is about the question you answered now. I live in a place where I'm surrounded by 4 quarries, where I am seeing from the time, like I have been in this place, about the levels of pollution, about how harmful it is for the health of the people surrounding in this village and things like that. Actually, the interesting story is there was a doctor who came around 4 to 5 years ago and who settled in our village. I'm not saying about the financial status, but he was from a very poor background, but right now he has bought a house, multiple cars, villas and everything in this place because of the. And when I had a discussion with him, it's about a lot of people daily are coming with dust allergies and asthma and a lot of problems like that. And I have even tried to think about, like, what could I do against this? But always there is this, one thing is the fear to fight against these people, because these are the people who rule this area. And the second thing is they also have the employer, like the largest employers of the people in this village. They are directly linked to these people, even though they destruct the roads every single year. There is we have to, do the tarring again and again. The dust is really bad. They're not doing anything to even, I think there are some laws saying that you should water the dust once it's on the road or when you're coming out of. Nothing is being happening, and still people are very, they don't resist. And one is this fear, as I said, and the second is the employment. So what are your both of yours opinion on these two things?
I will cut short my points, as there is not enough time to complete this one. Our youth is very much interested in environmental protection. At the same time, they are not keen on studying all these aspects properly. They are on a peripheral level. This is my opinion, maybe wrong. What I'm seeing is more people are coming to protect environment, where to plant the tree, where to put my signature for environment protection, like that. There is no consistent effort made by the youth. There are consistent efforts made by people like me, who is monitoring the notifications, who is monitoring the dilutions of policy, who is attacking the projects, each project if there is a violation. Such kind of a eye-opening vigilant is not seen among the youth. They want urgent result. I'm sorry, I will not.
Just
tell me.
Because I think one of the reasons why people, like, the youth especially are not knowing about a lot of things is because they don't have that information available to them. I have seen a lot of people trying to get this information, but it is not readily available to them, or they're not these information are not accessible. Like only through webinars and like discussing with you people, we got a lot of information today as well. So
Okay, I'll tell you that. See, nobody was there to teach me when I started this activity. Met Mr. Thomas, or I met Dr. Shekhar, or Dr. Sridhar uh, uh, after some 2 or 3 years. But if you Google it, you can find a lot of articles. If you Google, you can find a lot of uh, postings, a lot of letters, a lot of articles, a lot of newspaper items, or even videographs which says what should be done, what is to be done, etc. Somebody should feed them is what they want. That is not happening, I agree. But we should make consistent effort to understand what is. Some laws are very easy to understand also. Anyway, I am appreciating that there is a energy to understand things. We will be there to give whatever we are having. Then second issue is with respect to the quarrying and their conditions of clearance not being followed. Any person can download the environment clearance. They can read the conditions. They can see whether it is followed or not. If not, they can take photographs. They can upload in the website or for Facebook or Twitter. They can put a link of this and send to the authority concerned along with a Form 4 notice. Form 4 means it is a form available with the environment protection rules. You can download the Form 4. You can fill it up. Who is polluting? What is his address? Like that, there are so many things to be filled up. You fill it up, you mix your evidences with it, you send it to the ministry. You wait for some period, 30 days, then you can file petitions. So this can be done by any people. Akhilesh can do it tomorrow. Such kind of a consistent effort should be there. And peripheral understanding should be defeated with the scientific evidence. I think Mr. Thomas can join.
Most of you, I think, from the law background, I think, isn't it?
Science and law.
Yeah. At least, the important Supreme Court judgments on environment, you all must read. Lot of information can gather. At least the law people can easily gather, and the kind of that also, we are fortunate to have a judge like Justice Chandrachud, very, very, detailed, and any layman from any stream can understand. So at least, be a regular reader, either through Advocate Harish, or, you can form a group wherein either of us, you can put us a kind of, then we can put you in that judgments when it comes. But you must read. There is no shortcut for, reading it. So you read it, then you will gather a lot of information. This is number one. Number two, SC, SCA, maybe if you or somebody filing one case may not bring, immediate result. You may, at least 10, 20, Form 1, if you attack Form 1 the way casually the project proponent or the consultant. So their appraisal and their, the things will be more vigilant. That then they will in turn direct the project proponent. Arey bhai, it nahi chalega. You should be very careful. People are watching, because so that third party, role this young generation can take very seriously. Third party role, somebody else. Ministry is least bothered in doing anything. So that third party watchdog kind of a role that you people can become an individual or a group and be vigilant. There are agencies which does, in the central government for thermal power project. Any thermal power project, coming in, they send a critique that the AEA report is wrong, this Form 1 is wrong, public consultation is, so they send it to the committee. So the committee also, group of people, they know if they simply discard, next day it will be in the court, their members will be called. So be a watchdog. That is the societal role you can all play. Okay. So be in touch with Advocate Harish because he is a regular taskmaster onto this line. I am seeing him for so many years now. So he will be the best person. You can also, take my name or email so that I can also whatever way I can. Thank you.
And as a suggestion, I am telling you, wherever you are living, whether in Tamil Nadu, Kerala, Karnataka, Andhra, or Delhi, you go to the website of State Environment Impact Assessment Authority. You download some 10 environment clearances. You read it. You can easily find out the flaws in it. You can easily find out the condition is not necessary. This condition is not proper. This condition is not effective to reduce the pollution, etc. You can find it out. And you send an email to each expert in that committee. You tell him that I have seen your report, I have seen your environment clearance number so and so. You have not acted fairly, you have not acted scientifically, you are a failure in this process. You please add these conditions. So that if 5 or 10 emails are getting for one member, as Thomas said, they will be fearful next time. People are watching me. I cannot take it simply, so that they will do better things. Now that nobody is watching them, nobody is giving them any. Did any one of you have sent any email to ministry experts or state experts, or at least a critic against their environment clearances? You write in public. I am expecting that a college magazine. We are filling college magazines with poems, with articles, with interviews. Include one critic of any environmental project. That can also be included in magazines or in public magazines like Manorama, Madhubhumi, The Hindu, Indian Express.
You write a notification.
Yes, so that they will be alert. Media will take your opinion. Media will publicize it.
Okay.
I think we can wind up. Time is.
Yeah, time has been very long. I appreciate a lot for the presence of Harish Vasudevan sir and Thomas sir. It was more time.
I'm especially thankful to PZ Thomas because I just only invited him today morning.
Okay.
He's a busy person in Delhi.
Thanks a lot, sir, for coming.
Jai. All the best.
Thank you.
Move it, take it forward.
Yep.
That only this fire will continue.
Yep. We are actually planning to send the emails, and we are actually planning to create a detailed report on at least 10 projects, and our interns are also here. So we'll be sending that within the 30th June, and we'll conduct a detailed analysis on each project.
Collect the emails.
Yep.
Before
Yeah,
ending,
we will provide the emails as well.
Before ending, to flare up all your fire, I'll tell you one thing more. A kind of injustice. What was the necessity of this notification during the lockdown? Just think of their game plan so that nobody will, notice. Chup chap say they can get it cleared. What was the urgency? There is a regime from 2006 to 2020 in place. There is no vacuum. Clearances are being given and things are going on smoothly. Wait for 6 months. Wait for a year. Let this pandemic and the crisis be over. Come out with a fair, clean hand, bring notification. Who is preventing them? So the timing itself is with a hidden agenda.
Yes.
This is just to flare up your fire. Don't allow it to happen in front of us. I tell my children, if something happens in Syria, injustice, you can't do anything. If something happens in Africa, you can't do anything. But things are happening in front of you. You do something. Don't talk of Sudan or Syria or South Africa. Things are happening right in front of you. Raise objection about that injustice. That is the spirit. Okay, thank you. Good night.
Sure.
So collect 10 signatures each one in this group, 30 persons, 300 signatures will be there. 300 objections we can find.
Sure.
Thank you.
There will be more signatures as well.
So thank you, Akhilesh, for coordinating this. Thank
Thanks
you
a
once
lot,
again.
Bhavani.
Okay.
Thanks
Bye.
a lot for
I'm
both.
leaving. Bye.
Thank you.